good morning, everyone, and thank you for taking time to be here. If you're in this room or watching the recording of this briefing meeting, it is focused on the UT Global Tech Experience fall pilot that we are getting ready to complete in a couple of months at the end of the semester. So my name is Gretchen Neisler. I'm the Vice Provost for International Affairs. And I'm also the director of the Center for Global Engagement, and I am joined by Dr. Rorisa, who is the Associate Dean for Faculty Affairs and the Director of the School of Information Sciences. So I'm going to give him a brief opportunity to introduce himself.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Dr. Neisler. Thank you all for coming. This is really great. When we started this conversation with Podium, and we didn't know how it was going to go. So we wanted to share with you our experience on the pilot. But I'm really happy that we are part of this program and we are partnering with CGE. So I'm going to pass it on to Dr. Neisler and then come back.
So one of the promises that we made when we launched this pilot, because this program has a history on our campus, and we did another version of this program in 2021, and we enrolled at that time, and I have some slide information that I'll share in a moment, but we enrolled about 100 students in that program in 2021. But we didn't have enough solid background information about how new initiatives work in the curricular space on this campus. And so we came through a lot of steep learning curves and continued our conversations with Podium, watching the external landscape of what other universities were doing in terms of global engagement for their students, knowing that our students were coming to our campus expecting a different experience, also watching our enrollment numbers increasing. And because the Center for Global Engagement is responsible for mobility programming on this campus, we also are realistic in the sense that we're not going to put 36,000 students on a plane and fly them somewhere to have a globally immersive experience. Therefore, we had to start thinking in CGE how we were going to offer intentional and very meaningful global experiences for the students. This happens to be an option for us that we feel is very well done. It's of high quality academic rigor, and it works with a partner who does a lot of the administrative heft, taking away some of that burden for the departments that are interested in offering an experience. So what is the Global Tech Experience? It is largely a digital experience. There is global experiential learning that occurs, and the form that takes is the utilization of curriculum that is utilized for the foreign service officers when they're going through their intercultural communication training. It is also very focused on workforce development in the sense that students are engaging in project-based work and experiences around internships that they're completing under the guidance of Dr. Rorisa. I think the other thing that's really important that has been an enhancement since we ran the first pilot in 2021 is that now students, the UT students, are sitting with students from 77 institutions. And I'll put some maps up in a minute so you can see where those other students are coming from, but in all 50 states of the US and also 53 countries. That means that learning is occurring in a very diverse and very multidisciplinary way. So one of the 77 institutions is UT, and we're partnering with Podium Education, who is building the platform and offering the content for the coursework that the students are participating in. So here's the network within the US. You can see the other institutions that are offering these same programs to their students. So cohorts of students are compiled from these universities as well as institutions globally. In some of their global partners, these are informal learning modules where they are bringing students. We have also opened this up to other external partners. So for example, you may know that UT is now the academic host for the Afghan women's national basketball team. So there were 2 women in that program that had interest in building some of their skill set as they think about what's the next step for them. So we made an invitation for them to be able to join the cohort and learn more. So I think the important message here is that we're not just bringing UT students together into a space that is asynchronous and some synchronous work to learn from each other. We are really putting them in a diverse cohort where they're wrestling with what does the culture or someone else's background, how does that impact my ability to work with them on a team? What we hope in doing this opportunity for the students is that this may be a precursor to some mobility programming that they choose to enroll in later on in their academic tenure here at UT, or that they come back and continue to hone skills that they learned while they were in an education abroad program. Also knowing that we will be launching the Vol Edge initiative soon. This offers a way for students to consider doing a deeper dive and getting some alternative global immersion. So some things that we thought about, things that we learned, things that we really had to reflect on. And I've hit this point already, but less than 6% of our student body is currently participating in some sort of mobility programming overseas. And really, if you go back to what the mission and the vision is for the Center for Global Engagement, which is to enrich Tennessee through international development, global awareness, and service on the world stage so that the University of Tennessee fulfills its promise as a modern R1 land-grant university. This is really important to us. And what we're hearing out of the economic and community development space at the state level is that workforce development needs to include technical skill procurement, but we also need to be focused on how are we bringing team building skills and communication skills to our graduates so that they can work across multinational teams. Because of the foreign direct investment in this state and the priority that is being looked at in terms of the companies that we're courting to come here and build their North American headquarters, we believe that many of our students will find themselves sitting in multinational positions that have some sort of remote experience to them and remote responsibility, and therefore they're going to be working with people from other cultures. We also think that it's important in terms of keeping pace, not that we want to, usurp the Joneses, if you will, but that it's important that from a competitive standpoint, looking across the landscape at our peers and our aspirational peers, that we're joining in offering some of the same types of programming that now will be discussed in these interviews for positions or internship interviews when students are moving into the marketplace in at different levels. So I talked a little bit about what we learned in 2021. Here's some of the statistics that we ended that pilot with. We had a pretty good response rate in the sense that students felt those students that were enrolled in the program had a good experience. They felt that it was well done. They felt that they had rigor there that really brought them some skills that they would then apply and be able to articulate in a professional setting. But there were places, as I have already acknowledged, where we missed the mark. Faculty engagement being one of them, moving too fast through a decision-making process where faculty on this campus felt that they were not adequately consulted or asked to provide input. I think that offering these pilots is really a chance where we look at how do we slow down the execution of new programming for faculty to be able to get involved, see what the program is all about, I think the other piece of this that's really important is that the partner that's offering this program, Podium Education, is really open to what are our innovations around the platform that they've already created. So where is the sweet spot for the University of Tennessee in terms of, do our faculty want to teach some of these courses utilizing content and some of the data sets that Podium has already been able to curate? We're going to talk in a moment about a new feature that's going through the Global Tech program, and where the space is for UT to innovate around that. Another discussion that occurred after the 2021 pilot is, how do we take these skill sets and then work with a UT faculty member in our local community to be able to then bring this learning to bear? For instance, is there a way that a student group would build a new website for the Bridge Refugee Services, as an example, with the skills that they gained in the Global Tech coursework? So I think there's an open door for us to have those conversations with Podium. I think it's important for me to go back to 2021 in 2020, when we started looking at this program, to contextualize where we were on this campus. We were in the midst of COVID. We had an entire cohort of students who had no ability to travel because we shut down the world. We knew we were graduating those students and they did not have any global experiences, and we felt we had an obligation to offer them a way in which they could capture some of that transformational learning. This became a viable pathway. It was something that, because the platform was already constructed, it gave us the ability to be able to move this out and make it accessible to our students in a short period of time. When we were having conversations with faculty who have the expertise in these content areas on this campus, we heard resounding levels of interest from those faculty in wanting to teach this class, but always followed up with, we won't be able to produce this for you until 3 to 5 years from now. That wasn't an option for this cohort of students. I had no way to be able to bring back these juniors and seniors back after they graduated to be able to have the experience. So we opted for a pilot where we would welcome the faculty to come in and take a look at this and then do some innovative thinking with us. So we came back to the idea. We ran some things differently in terms of making this raising the awareness on our campus. We found an academic department outside of CGE, because that was also a pain point for us in the original pilot, was that we centered everything within the Center for Global Engagement. One of the team members in CGE served as the faculty or the instructor of record, which was not held in high esteem by our faculty on this campus. And so those are the things that we then looked to change with offering this 2023 pilot. So we had a partner. And Dr. Ruiz is going to talk to you about what they went through in their department in terms of decision making and awareness raising amongst the college. We sat down with the dean of the College of Communication and Information and had a conversation to make sure that he thought this was the right direction for his college, and it was an offering that they wanted to have for the students. And he was on board from that meeting going forward and has now endorsed doing another pilot program this spring. So we also offered an opportunity for colleges to opt out if they didn't want any marketing to go to their students, because there were still significant concerns about the quality of the program and how the program was structured. So we honored that in the sense that we moved individually through colleges and college academic advisors to really respect that they weren't ready to make this an offering to their students. And we wanted them to be able to then stand back or participate in the pilot and have some of their faculty engaged to see if this was something they wanted to do. I would say the one thing that didn't go so well with the rollout of the 2023 pilot is that by the time we had done the legwork on campus to put all of the pieces together, and we were at the point where we needed to get information in the hands of the students, we were really far behind in terms of the cycle of when students make decisions about courses. So we saw a low enrollment, I think, due to that fact. We also saw some colleges who said, hey, we think this is really great and we want to offer this, but we can't, our students will never enroll in these credits now because it's too late in the game. Because when did we go out, Christina? Like August? Yeah. So we were pretty far behind. So what we're hoping with the spring offering of a pilot is that we see other colleges who take an interest and that they consider then, is there a course they want to cross list? Then the communications and the School of Information Sciences will still be the host and the primary partner for the academic piece of this. So we're going to show you a short video now to sort of take an inside look at what the feel is for the students when, so I have to stop sharing. No? No? Oh, well, I just did, sorry.
Okay.
In higher education, talent is universal. Opportunity is not. Intel, the world's most innovative universities, and Podium Education have come together to create a new model to level the playing field. And it all starts with bringing the workplace into the classroom.
We're at Intel's Gordon Moore Park, and this place is where some of Intel's most cutting-edge work happens, and it's great to be here to partner with Intel on a real-world data project. Come on.
Participating students tackle a real-world data analysis project co-designed with Intel's sustainability team.
At Intel, what we try to do is really take a step back and look at the entire product life cycle.
So the challenge is really tying sustainability to engineers' jobs.
And so then what we do is we'll take the manufacturing piece because this is where we have a big impact.
Yeah, huge impact on that.
Exactly.
By bringing together employers and educators, this model aims to give every college student real-world experience while on the path to a degree.
We not only want to make great technology, but we want to make the world a better place. So that is why we're so excited to work with you and your students on this project.
So diversity, inclusiveness is good for our business, and that's why this partnership with Podium is our way to ensure that we're nurturing the talent pipeline. Something like this, when we're actually going into the classroom, it allows us to really convey what Intel is doing, and then hopefully they might think, you know what, I like this company. I see what they're doing. I want to work for Intel someday.
Okay, so I'm going to hand it, is this working? Okay, I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Reese, and he's going to talk a little bit about some of the bones of the program and how it works. And then we will talk a little bit more about the project-based experiences.
Thank you, Dr. Neisler. All right. So Dr. Neisler said I'm the instructor of record, so I can really see some of this in action. So this is just a summary slide to show you how the Global Tech program works. So a student is enrolled in 3 courses, right? I think we're going to share those with you. So for each one of them, basically, they work on asynchronously on some assignments. And then there are what they call live labs, where there is actually a coach, live coach that helps them work on those projects. And there is always, in those projects, the intercultural framework. I think for me, that is where the global comes in, right? And then the industry tools and eventually project partners. Remember when Dr. Neisler showed that slide where the Global Tech program is really an intersection between an internship experience or experiential learning and a global education. So I think for me, this and that slide really captures what the Global Tech program is and what the students experience in this course. So I'm going to see if, yes, so I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Neisler and then I'll come back. Yep.
So you saw a preview in that video about what Podium has now framed as an internship project. I think what's really important here is that there is no misunderstanding that students leave this program thinking that they have completed an internship that the university would also define as an internship. This is a project. It is an internship project, and they use that language because it is necessary for the students to understand that they're working with an industry partner, as well as completing task-oriented work, and then having to share that work in a virtual space with those industry partners. So you can see an outline here about working alongside of the project supervisors, and then with another Intel staff person, sort of curating what is the issue that they want to work on and giving feedback to the students about what they're doing. Now, what is really fascinating about this new component within the 3 courses is that Podium has shared with us that they are open to us connecting with the industry partners that we have here at the university. So Bridgestone, Denso, also, the name just jumped out, Hankook Tire out of Korea, global partners that we have cultivated these relationships with and are actively doing collaborative research and also doing student programming with these companies already, can now become a part of this and run these projects. So very likely there are students who are leaving us to go and complete an internship in person with some of these businesses where they could be getting pieces of the work culture and the industry culture, and we would tailor that experience to our students. So I think that's a really important thing to keep in mind of how do we then begin to nuance this, bless you, and really make it fit the needs of the students on our campus.
Thank you. All right, thank you. So let me step back, right? And how did we start and why did we get into this? For me, when Dr. Neisler and her team at CGE came to us and met with the dean, and Dr. Julie Longmire here, who has been involved from the beginning, really great help, was the motivation for us, the School of Information Sciences, was that does this align with the mission of the school and what we want our students to get out of any program, right? And the second one is, does it provide a unique experience for our students that we cannot offer here, right? And I think it checked all of those. And eventually, we want the students to have success, right? Academically, and eventually, hopefully, a positive career outcome. For me, this program helps the students do all of that. So that's when I said, oh, I think this looks like a really cool program. And then we didn't say yes. What we did was that we came up with a long list, yes, with a long list of questions. And, Dr. Longmire and Christina here and Dr. Neisler and her team were with us in those meetings with colleagues from Podium. And we went back and said, how would this work, right? How would this benefit our students? Do we have this question, that question? They were very happy to talk to us and help us understand how it works. And part of the reason is why it was led is because of that as well. So we wanted to get it right. That's what I wanted to say. So we wanted to get this one right so that we went into this knowing, right, the benefits to our students, right? And if there are any challenges, we knew what those challenges were. So this is just sort of some background. And so we have been receiving emails at least twice a day from the system. So I receive in the morning, I have a summary email, what is coming up, what are the students working on, and then at the end of the day. So I log in usually at least once a day And then I try to join, if my schedule allows, the live labs, because it's really fascinating how they can work with students from 10, 12 other institutions and working on, as there's a nicely said, real world data from real companies, right? Interacting with, coaches, right? During the lab labs. And we have done some, Podium did some midterm survey. So according to that, I think our cohort, the UT cohort, obviously is a small sample, right, of 5, but they seem to like the program to the extent that they would recommend this to others. I think that is really positive, something we can take from this. And if you wanted to take a look at least a sample comment, so this really speaks to what I said. Remember the slide I showed where this is about the live labs. It's really fascinating seeing the students work on the projects and putting what they learn in some of the classes, the asynchronous classes, into practice, right? And getting some really, really useful skills and knowledge that they can apply here while at UT or after they graduate. And so this is another UT student. I think, again, remember what I said at the beginning, right? So this was for me about, would this program provide a unique learning experience for our students that we cannot provide? I think this is a good example, right? So we are limited in terms of facilities in the college. I think our college is actually, we just came from a meeting where we're really excited. So the dean is working hard on hopefully getting a new building approved if everything goes well. So we're going to expand this facility. But in the meantime, we can provide our students with opportunities to learn through programs like this one. So this comment is, I think, although it is about the live lab, it's about something we cannot offer, but they can actually learn through this program. Yes, I think overall, in those 3 areas, the program, the instruction, and the coaching during the live labs and outside the live labs, as you can see, the ratings are really high and great. Again, take it with a pinch of salt, right? So a small sample, but it is very, very encouraging. All right, I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Neisler. I think this is about the sort of the global survey that Podium does. It's not specific to youth. Yeah, thank you.
So these metrics are really taking in totality the global tech experience that's being offered amongst all of the U.S. institutions currently. And so these measurements are showing you how students at other peer institutions, as well as our aspirational peers, how their students are feeling. And incidentally, I think one of the other good learning opportunities that we had was some direct connectivity with 5 institutions that were setting this program. Well, 3 of them had already been offering it when I reached out to them. And I did this when we were doing the 21 pilot. I came back to them when we revisited this idea to see how things were going and to really get off the record input on this. And then 2 of the institutions, Michigan State University as well as the University of Kentucky, were in the process of offering this starting this summer. And so I did a deep dive with them. Because I had come from Michigan State, I was able to get, literally I was being blind copied on email transmissions going back and forth to Podium about pain points that MSU was having, things that their faculty were saying about this. They ended up enrolling this fall. I think they had 1,800 students who enrolled in the program and took these courses. So I think the other thing that's important to mention is that these 3 courses offer students the ability to earn 6 credits, but that is 6 credits that is not counting toward their major. And that's a really important piece for everyone to keep in mind. So the students are having to look for ways in which they can offer this or utilize those credits. If it is sitting in their home department, because I see Julie's eyes going, wait, what is she saying? So if it's in their home department, that's up to the decision of the academic home, whether or not they will allow the credits to count for their degree completion. But if it is a student joining from another department, that is something that will be worked out in advance of the students starting the courses. And the content is data science, coding, and marketing at the global level. So one of the other concerns when we launched the initial pilot in 21 was that the faculty here felt that the global componentry of this in the intercultural learning was weak, and that students would not recognize that they were actually getting these skills. So we put together this slide so that you could see how students were feeling about what they were accomplishing and what they were learning in this space. So what this says to me is that they do have an understanding that this has an important place in the field and where they're going, and also that they are gaining some of that competency through their participation in these courses. And here is a quote from a University of South Florida student who took the courses in the summer. This quote was given to us by Podium. And here is another quote. And here's a U of M, University of Michigan student taking the course this summer as well. Arizona State. So they're similar in what these students are saying and what they're recognizing about what this provides. Honestly, what we're looking for is a way to provide students who are sitting in academic homes that might not have access to this content, but know that this skill set is important for them to be competitive when they hit the marketplace. We're not anticipating that this is going to fill a need for students who are steeped in this technical componentry, but rather as a supplement or another way to see a different perspective and use a different lens for their learning in that technical space.
Thank you. All right. What are we going to do next, right? So obviously, as we said, this is a pilot with a smaller group of students. So we would love to hear from the students. So we'll do a debrief meeting at the end, and then Podium will do another student evaluation of the program. So they will share those with us. And then at some point, I think in the spring, in coordination with Dr. Neisler's office and CGE, Podium Education, the team, will visit UT, and we would love to expand the program across colleges outside CCI, obviously. And then we will work with colleges and departments to make the program announcement. And if you are from a different college, we would need your help on that one. I'll continue to be the instructor of record, so I will use my experience this semester, hopefully to build on this and improve the program for our students. And at the end of that, we'll make a decision. Hopefully we will, continue, expand. I think based on the student feedback so far, both students from UT and students from other institutions, it looks like this is really, really beneficial to the students. They're building 21st century skills, right? So whether the students from, journalism and media or advertising and public relations, these skills translate to different sectors, to different, jobs and positions. And we would really love to do that. And one thing I really like about this program is that they're not just sitting around, they're looking for other partners in terms of companies that can join the program. So they're opening up opportunities for the students. So they're growing the number of partners, and I think that will expand again the offering in terms of real data that the students can use in their projects. So, okay, Nessa, you want to close?
So just a couple more things. I think what's important is to have an awareness of how this is getting picked up in the industry amongst businesses. This is the QR code that will take you to a Fortune magazine article that was just published, I think this week, highlighting the program. And I guess the significance of that is that the businesses are paying attention to this, and as they begin to enhance their awareness of the program, I think that it could be that they're going to start paying attention to what these skills are. I think some of them probably will begin to engage with Podium Education in terms of being those companies that are featured in the curriculum of the program. But we wanted to provide this QR code to you so that if you wanted to look at the article and see what was being printed about the program and how it's being held up to the industry leaders, you could do that. I think the other things that are important for me to say before we open this up for questions is that we made a promise when we took on this pilot that one of the things we would do is come back to the campus community and share, you know, what Dr. Ruiz's lived experience was with the pilot, and to be able to share with you what we know. We chose this day, this time frame, because of the timeline that we're looking at in terms of marketing for next semester. So we wanted to make sure that we brought this information to the campus community. I will tell you that a message went out on the DDDH listserv, as well as I personally sent messages to Faculty Senate informing them that we were doing this briefing meeting. I invited them to come. So we will now take the recording of this meeting and put it out on the websites, and also I will email a link to the same marketing pathways that I sent the original announcement of this briefing meeting. We're trying to be as transparent as we can and deal with issues around the concerns or the issues that the campus community is having with the program. I would encourage all of us to think in spaces that are innovative. This campus is launching into the digital space in other ways that have nothing to do with the Center for Global Engagement at this point in time, albeit we think there is definitely some connectivity and some relevance for a global component to be brought into that. But I think we've got to push ourselves in some spaces where there is some initial discomfort, and we need to do it together. I'm not a faculty member, and I, have done a lot of teaching in my career, but I have not carried the obligations of being in a tenure track faculty position or even in a non-tenure track faculty position. And so it's important that we do this as in a collaborative way. It's important to the Center for Global Engagement that we are working across campus to determine what is the best way for our students to leave us as global citizens, whether they ever leave the state of Tennessee or not. Because the reality is they live in a global world. I am on a daily basis as a mother with two 13-year-old boys astounded with what exposure my kids have. Most days I'm just afraid. I'm not even in awe of what access they have. It just scares the crap out of me. So I think that when we start to think about what future generations of students are coming to our campus, I'm convinced that my kids probably will look for a brick and mortar place just so they can leave their house. But their expectation will be that their education is going to be procured from all different sorts of places, and it's going to be up to the institution that is housing them to figure out how to help them bring all those pieces together. And I think that that is going to become our reality. So as much as we are able to now start taking small steps to see how these things feel and give, platforms to our faculty, Podium has said, take this and bring your faculty to it and let your faculty teach. So let's keep running some pilots and find the faculty who are interested in doing this. Podium, we'll have to negotiate with Podium, but they'll give them the access to all of the high quality production services that the students are getting now in the content that they're receiving. And let's figure out how to make this a UT program that Podium is running, the logistics in the technology behind it. So with that, do you want to say any final words?
Just thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's a small group today, so I'm not exactly sure how to interpret that. If we planned it at a bad time, or if there aren't as many concerns as I thought there were with the program, but we certainly, if you have questions for us, we need you to use the microphone so it gets picked up on the Zoom recording.
I just wanted to ask about use of credit and how you manage that, particularly in the term,
Yeah.
whether or not your students are taking the full 6 hours, how does that work with the CPOS, that whole situation, how did you navigate that?
Yeah. And so speaking of just the pilot, right? So this course, sorry. Yeah. Thank you for that question. So this course, INC 491, really perfectly fits into that. So it's a variable credit, so they can take up to, I believe, 9 credits if they choose to, right? Yes. So in this program, so they can do 6. So obviously this varies, right, from school and from unit to unit, right? Depending on your school, you may have, a course that would fit into this, but if you want them to, Julie wants to say something, I don't know that this is right.
No, thank you.
As far as the college communication information, 4 out of the 5 students were in college for information sciences students. And so information sciences 491 serves as a capstone experience. And then to incorporate the other 3 hours of credit that they're earning, we did a petition to count that for an information sciences elective credit. So it does go for their major and it does come for its CPOS. We have another student who is in our college but in a different major that was pursuing a minor in one of our programs as well. And so we were able to look at the content of the courses and what she would learn from that and set it for the minor. So that's how we handled it.
I guess maybe follow up to that, and if I think about your use of it as a capstone, were you requiring a level of student or prereq for it to count as a capstone?
So no, and information sciences gives students a lot of options for their capstone experience. I can say anecdotally, the majority of the students who are currently in the pilot are, I think they're all juniors and seniors.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Longmire. That's why we're here.
Thank you for the presentation. I learned a lot today and I have some questions around some of the logistics of this. So for example, is participation limited by the capacity of the industry partners? Are there class limits? Things like that.
Oh, yeah, go ahead. Yep, thank you.
So they don't cap us on participation. What Podium has promised is that if the cohorts are growing in size, then the live lab instruction, then they begin to get more human capacity for the live labs as well as coaches to assist the students as the cohorts are growing in number. So we're not capped in how much participation we can have.
Okay, and then you talked about the different countries that are participating and that we have students from each of the states in our country. Is there a list then of corporate partners that the students can select and say, I'd like to participate in this, and this is the direction I want to go? Are they choosing from a menu that Podium has of its industry partners?
Not at this time.
Mhm.
So right now, students are participating with the industry partners that Podium has secured. And there are, I don't know how many in total, but I know that there is a variety, Intel being a primary partner, as you saw in the video, but also Netflix, Spotify, Shopify. And what's happening is that they're pulling data sets, big data for the students to utilize in their projects. But the instructor, in this case, in the example that was shown here today, is from Intel. But the students could be working through data that came from Netflix as a part of their project. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, thank you. And then one last, I have many questions, but I'll just leave you with one more.
Yeah.
And what are the language requirements for this? Because working with populations from across the globe,
Yeah.
what is the language expectation and the sharing of, don't say the burden then of communication? And where is the kind of latitude for learning or participating in different languages as well?
So I don't have a firm answer for you on this. I'm gonna tell you what I have heard. I've never asked that specific question, which I think is a very good one. Most of the language is being handled when Podium negotiates with those international universities. But I can't tell you what Podium says is an acceptable TOEFL score, as an example, or how they're evaluating the language capacity. My hunch is that they're having those conversations when they're negotiating the partnership with the university. And the partnership is then guaranteeing that the students they bring to the program will have a certain level of language capacity that either Podium has entrusted that they're evaluating that at the front end, or that Podium has said, this is what we need you to show of your participants. I can find the answer to that question, but I don't know it now. Sarah?
To follow up, you have a sense of the international to domestic percentages of the cohort?
I don't know the, go ahead and ask your question again.
Do you have a sense of the share of international to domestic students in the cohort?
Yeah, so I don't have the numbers, those I can get from you, but it is still, I would say, at least probably 60 to 70% domestic to international. They were pretty intentional, Podium, they being Podium, was intentional about building that domestic network first. And when I think the domestic universities started, so one of the things that I, talk about all the time when I'm overseas at our university partners is that our students are participating in this program and there's almost immediately interest. And so I think what was happening is that early adopters of the program were having the same kind of conversations that I do. And then they were reaching out to Podium. So for example, next week, we're hosting a large delegation from the University of Rwanda. And when we were in Rwanda in June, they asked about it. And we were actually trying to coincide Podium's visit on campus so they could interact with the UR leadership to see if UR wanted to become a partner in this as well. So it's still predominantly domestic students who are participating, but I think if Podium were standing here, Chris Parrish would tell you, our hope is that we get more of a balance. Because I honestly think that the global piece and the global learning will be enhanced with the more international students they have in the cohort. Other questions? Other things we didn't cover?
I'm sorry.
That's good.
Most of my questions are about it being offered in the term.
That's good.
With the live labs, how are students able to coordinate those against their other class schedules? Is there just a volume of available live labs and they just choose, or how did that work in the whole life?
Good. That's a good question.
Julie.
That was my understanding, that students had a variety of lab options that they could choose, and they were offered in the evenings, from what I've understood from students who I've talked to that are experiencing the program. So there didn't seem to be any conflict between the current courses and what was happening.
Yep, that's right. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Lam. That's right. Yeah. So they have really flexible options in terms of joining the live labs. So that is part of their sort of expectation, right? In the course, so they make sure that the students actually join those labs to get the assignments and the projects done. Yeah.
I see you're ticking through her list of questions. What's next, Sarah?
No, it's not. If a faculty member has interest in one of the areas, wants to explore, yeah, what are the opportunities there?
So I think the first step would be that when Podium comes this spring and we're working on dates with them, is that we carve out time for the interested faculty member to sit down with them, and I would say one-on-one, unless you have partners, I'm assuming you're speaking for yourself and not a friend.
Always for free.
But with that, unless you have other colleagues that you have already spoke to about maybe team teaching this in some way. But we get you like some one-on-one time with Chris. I think that who will come will be Chris Parrish, who's the CEO, and then Caroline Akins, who's the program manager. And sit down with them and let's explore what's possible. And I think, you know, once they start to hear what your interests are, what I've seen from them is, I mean, like ideas every second coming out of Chris's head. And so it will be really easy for him to figure out how to take the current model and sort of open it up and twist it around so it can become perfect.
Would you like to share your thinking about what it would take to move from pilot to operation, if you will? Like, what are the benchmarks or the criteria that you would say, yes, this is really taking hold and we're ready to move into the future? Because as you described, this semester seemed like the timing just wasn't exactly the best to really get that optimal participation. So you want to say anything about like what's it going to take to switch over from pilot to operation? You want to start?
Yeah, I can start. Yeah. Thank you for that. I think that's really, really key, right? So I'll go back to what I said, right? So are the students benefiting? Are there any challenges, right? Especially for the students. I think as far as I'm concerned, I think we can support it. I think there's a nice level and CGE can support this, but it has to work for the students. As a program, yes, on the face of it, to me, it's a great program. It doesn't mean that there are no challenges, right? So as long as we don't face, those challenges, and I think we will really embrace it fully as a school.
I think the spring pilot will be telling. I think if we're timing it right in terms of marketing to students and we see a big jump in enrollment to indicate that there is the interest amongst the students in CTI, I think that will be a really strong metric. I think for myself personally, I would like to see another college engage and be ready to open this up and, cross list a course of their own with this. That would indicate to me that, we're not going to ever have all of the colleges involved, and that's okay with me, but I do think that especially in this time of budget transitioning and now because of the ambiguity around the budget model, I sit in a lot of meetings where on a daily basis, I feel as though we've left our jobs of educating young people and moved into the zone of creating kingdoms, and that concerns me. And if this is a way for us to, keep a bit of a hole in the silos that are being built across colleges and keep people coming together and finding ways that are, benign but productive ways for colleges to collaborate with each other, then I think for me, that is a hallmark of success. I mean, I agree with Dr. Risa that it has to be valuable and it has to be, a positive experience for the students. But because I am in this administrative role, if we're finding ways to connect colleges, then that's a way for me to also begin to have conversations with multiple colleges about collaborative research projects or collaborative mobility programming or other types of academic programming that we're gonna come into when we fully launch Vol Edge or in this digital space. Any other questions, comments? Julie, do you want to add anything that we need to come in? I think we covered everything. Okay, so to Sarah, question?
I'm still just thinking through. I'm still just thinking through the live labs, and thinking specifically, you had mentioned that you would try to log into those faculty record. Were you able to know which ones your students would be in, or if there was such a wealth of them? Was it kind of hit or miss as to like you would pop into one and maybe they were there, maybe they weren't?
Yeah.
I think about faculty oversight and attendance.
Yes, most if not all of them join because it's a requirement, right? So, yeah, it is one of those things that, and I think for me, the value add, live lab is a huge one, right? Yes, we have like asynchronous courses here, right? But the live labs are really, really the value add for this program.
But I also think they had to identify, right, which live lab they were going to.
Yes.
Yes,
And so it's like a lab session, right? Like here on campus, if they had a chemistry lab, they have to say, I'm going to this chemistry lab. So then he was going to the labs where our students indicated.
yeah, I don't go to
That's
all of them.
exactly my question. So you knew exactly which of the labs.
Yes,
Good.
absolutely, because it is announced in the, yeah,
Okay.
And Podium tracks their attendance.
They do.
And they report that back to the.
they do. Yeah, they do.